All right, in this video, I'm going to show you the basics of how curves work. This is a fundamental tool in Illustrator. It's really important if you're going to be doing any work in Illustrator that you should know how curves work. And they look just like this. Ooh. All right, let's check it out. Here we go. All right, so where we left off in my introductory video about using the pen tool was that you create anchor points and you generate line segments between those anchor points. So as I'm demonstrating here, I'm just clicking on the screen, making anchor points, and in between them are anchor handles. And also, just as a quick refresher, I take the white arrow and I can manipulate where those anchor points are located on the screen. And if it's solid blue, that means it's selected. And if it is white with a blue outline, that means it is not selected. All right, so that's the basics of how the pen tool works. But this is not the be-all and end-all of Illustrator. We can draw a lot more complex shapes using this tool. So I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to take the pen tool again, and this time what I want to do is I'm going to draw a curve with the pen tool. And the way that this works is I click and drag on the screen, and I create an anchor point that is a curve point. Now let's just take a break for a second and just take a look at what we have on the screen. In the middle is our anchor point. Out here at the end are referred to as the handles or the anchor handles. And they control the shape and the direction of the curve. So that means that if I click and drag on the screen again and I drag it out really far, I'm going to make a very steep curve. And if I drag it out just a slight distance away from the anchor handle, an anchor point, I'm going to create a very flat curve, right? The analogy that I like to use is that imagine the anchor handle is a magnet. And imagine that the line segment is made out of metal. That line segment made out of metal is always going to want to follow where that anchor handle is. So the further out you drag it, the more that's going to stretch. And if you drag it only a short distance, it's not going to stretch very far. All right, another thing to recognize about the curves is that every path that you draw has a certain direction. It's either going clockwise or counterclockwise. So in this path, because I'm going from left to right, the direction of this path is essentially clockwise, because I could just continue around and reconnect to this, and now I have a closed path, and the path is moving clockwise. I can also move counterclockwise, so I'm just drawing the same path but in the opposite direction. And this is just generating a path that is going from right to left. So something that can happen and something to be aware of is because this path has a certain direction, if you change the direction of the anchor handles, you'll create some loops. So for this example, I'm going to start from going from left to right, and I'm going to draw my anchor handle going in the opposite direction, so from right to left. And then down here, I'm going to go from left to right. So what I've done is I've created these loops because I'm going counter to the direction of the path, means that I'm generating these loops. So you don't have to work just left and right. You can certainly go up and down, so you can make a path that goes like this, right? So each one goes up and down. And this is just my example where we're just making these curvy lines. You can make curves that go in different directions to create a circular-ish shape. So curves don't have to go in one direction or the other. They're going to go in multiple directions. But just be aware that curves have a direction that they follow, and that they can go in any direction that you choose, um, and then reversing that direction will force some loops to happen in your drawing. So here's a good exercise that I think you all should try. Um, First thing is just clear out your screen. Start on the left hand side. Take your pen tool and click and drag to the right. Then move up and to the right and click and drag again. And just click and drag down and to the right, up and to the right, down and to the right, up and to the right. Right? This just gives you an idea of how these curves work. Another thing that you can practice is click and drag to the right and then move up and to the right and click and drag to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, and to the left, etc. And if you want to be really fancy about it, you can go to the left and to the left and to the left and to the left, 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 right? I consider doing stuff like this the equivalent of practicing the piano. Just that you want to get used to how this tool works and how this tool moves. All right, I'm going to delete out these, and I just want to show you one more thing that we can do with curves, and this involves using the direct selection tool. So we saw in the pen tool basics, the direct selection tool allows you to move anchor points, and it allows us to move anchor points with our curves as well. The addition is that we have anchor handles that we can move. So I'm going to take my white arrow, my anchor point tool, or my direct selection tool, I should say, and I'm going to click on this anchor point. That's solid blue. Everything else is white with an outline, and now I can move the location of that. What I can also do is now click on one of the handles and change the shape and the direction of that curve. Now, as I rotate this around, pay attention, the anchor handles are initially locked at 180 degrees opposite from one another. In a following video, I'm going to show you how we can kind of break that relationship, but for now, if you're just using the curve tool for the first time, just play around with manipulating the anchor handles and changing the location of the anchor points, changing the shape of that curve, dragging it in or out. And then, that's kind of the fundamentals of the anchor point tool. One more thing I want to point out is that each of these points has an in or an out. So because I drew my curve from left to right, any of the anchor handles on the left-hand side are considered the in point, and the anchor handle on the right-hand side is considered the out point. And the reason is that a curve is coming into this point, and then a curve is leaving this point, and that's the out point. So I can adjust the out handle separate from the in handle. All right, so that's it for now. In future tutorials, we'll look at some other ways that we can manipulate the curve tool, and then we'll get into tracing as well. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Peace.